So, and one of the interesting things in biology is the like what happens in the new environments, like how life colonizes a new environment. And usually the example is like when a volcano erupts from under the sea and it creates a new island, right? That's an interesting thing. And so then how does life colonize this basically a piece of volcanic rock that has just cooled, just kind of spewed out of the ocean and solidified into a solid rock? Like how life colonizes it. So you have like insects flying in, and then you have like seeds flying in, and then like lichens will be one of the first to be able to survive because like most plants can't live on bare rock, right? Most plants require soil to live on. Moss is quite competent at surviving on really thin substrates, and of course lichen. So the lichen will grow first, and then the lichens, when they die, will break apart, and they'll like become soil. Insects will also fly in, and as like insects kind of fly in and they'll die on the island, and then their bodies will kind of break apart and decompose, and they'll become soil. And so the soil, like from very little bits and pieces, the soil just starts to accumulate. And then as the soil accumulates more and more, eventually other life forms can then grow on that new soil. So it's a fascinating thing how how life grows on a completely new place, like a volcanic island in the middle of the ocean. And so like complex animals like us, like we can't survive unless we have our food and our water. Like lichens just pull moisture out of the air, right? They pull moisture out of the air. They pull a lot of stuff out of the air, and so they just kind of it. Oh crap! Wrong thing. Like when you see a lichen growing in some of these like really harsh environments, it looks like the lichen is just appearing out of nowhere, which is kind of strange. So like these trees are appearing out of nowhere in Minecraft. It's kind of weird. And lichens are a bit like that. Like lichens will just appear out of nowhere, and like when especially when they're stuck to something like your car or like a metal roof or like even a tile roof, and you're like, what is going on? How is this thing growing on a piece of metal like this? Like there's no where are the nutrients coming from? It's, like what does it eat? What does this thing eat? And yeah, lichens amazingly can can eat things that you wouldn't expect, like a toxic slag heap. Like when your lichens growing on toxic rubbish, like toxic waste. And like, what on earth is the lichen eating? Well, it's eating the toxic waste, believe it or not. I guess moss is also interesting. Like moss will grow on stones, right? Like a mossy stone. And again, it's like how does the moss do that? Maybe I should look at that up as well. Um, all right, lichens is fascinating. You should go to Wikipedia and look up lichens. Let me look up moss. Moss is also interesting. They're small flowerless plants that typically grow in dense green clumps or mats, often in damp and shady locations. Well, there's lichens, hornworts, and liverworts, and they're all different things, but they're kind of similar. So moss is just plants, and they do kind of have roots. But again, like they can just grow on rocks. Like a patch of it will just grow on rocks. So that's kind of, well, the thing is they're not growing on the rocks directly, right? What moss is that moss can grow on very, very thin soil. Like just a tiny, tiny bit of soil is enough for the moss to grow up. And so the rocks aren't completely smooth, usually. And so like little cracks and crevices in the rocks, the moss can grow there. With a little bit of soil in the crevices, and then the moss will grow. And as the moss grows, it creates more soil, right? Because it's a plant. And as parts of the plant decomposes, it becomes more soil. And then the moss will take the soil that used to be itself, and they'll just cling on to it with its roots, and continue to accumulate more and more soil. So moss is interesting in that way. So it's like a thing that accumulates things that it needs to survive out of dead bits of its own body, which is kind of amazing. So it's a bit like lichens. So just cling on to tiny, teeny, tiny little bits of things, and then they grow. And of course, plants, when they grow, I mean, they grow relatively slowly, but they're quite powerful. Or they can be. So like, you know how tree roots, if you have a tree root under your house, eventually if the tree just is allowed to grow, the roots will like break your house. Or like if you have tree roots underneath a concrete slab, or if you have tree roots near a sewer pipe or something, like the tree roots, if it finds its way into little cracks, then it'll just grow into the crack, and then it'll grow and widen and become thicker, and then it'll just kind of break apart things. And again, like this also helps itself and other plants. It's because, like, again, going back to the volcano in the middle of the ocean, like how do you turn a volcano into soil? Well, part of that is the plant roots growing into tiny cracks in the rocks, and then breaking the rocks apart as it grows. And then as the things break apart, it eventually becomes soil, right? So like it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces until like there's bits of sand, and then it until it's small enough to be absorbed by the living things, by the lichens and the mosses and the trees and whatever. It just breaks into smaller and smaller pieces until it can be absorbed, and then it becomes a part of the plant. It gets eaten by the plant, as it were, and then it becomes organic material, right? Very interesting stuff. All of which is not in Minecraft. In Minecraft, the trees just appear. You put a sapling on the ground, after a few minutes, the tree appears, and that's it. And the point I'm getting at is that, like the plants are taking the rocks, they're taking the ground and then turning them into trees. Like they're taking minerals from the ground and turning them into trees, and that is fascinating because it's a conversion of material, right? Whereas in Minecraft, the wood just appears, but the ground is not converted, and so the ground stays the same, but the trees appear, and so this conversion doesn't take place. And I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of like magic trees, because that's not how the real world works. That's not how real life works. Like in real life, everything converts from one thing to another, right? Everything transforms from one thing to another. Nothing appears out of nothing. Like it seems like the lichen just appears out of nothing and grows on your roof or on your car or whatever it is. But it's not, right? It's like there's spores that land in tiny little microscopic little cracks in your roof, and then they're able to slowly decompose your roof into food, and so on and so forth. So this sort of interesting stuff you won't find in Minecraft. In fact, in a lot of video games. I guess there's a part of me that disagrees with a lot of video games, because like in a lot of games you kill things, you grab loot, and then more things spawn, and this seems kind of natural to people who don't really understand where things come from. And it really encourages a rather negative sort of behavior where you just take things without considering where it comes from. It's the pillager mentality, right? It's the basically just walk around and you just grab things. And I think I've talked about it in an earlier video here. But the so-called exploration in Minecraft really is just pillaging. You just walk around and you just pick up whatever it is you want, without a care in the world, without a care for where it comes from or why it's there. And then you just leave your crap behind you. And you know, when you're small, like if you are one player in an infinitely generated world, you can kind of get away with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Because it's just you, right? It's just you in this world. But the world, I mean, we don't live in that sort of world in the real world anymore. I mean, it used to be. Oh crap! There's a cave. It used to be that people were small, in contrast to how big the world is, right? Back before, machines and guns and computers and back in the old days. I don't have my pick. Should I go explore this? I probably should. Let me just come down here and explore this. I will fill this in once I do. Alright, impromptu spelunking, or maybe not. Let me just leave this here. We will come back for this. We'll come back for this. We're not gonna do impromptu spelunking. Oh crap, I don't mean to do that. How was this? I can't remember. Anyway, so let me just dig this out. Let me just keep working, and we'll just leave a hole in the ground, and we'll come back. Anyway, so we live in a world where there's what, 7 billion people in the world now? 7 billion. And when there's 7 billion people in the world, we can't just go marauding around and grabbing whatever we want from the environment, right? So that doesn't work in the real world anymore because the world is not big enough for that. Like, there's not enough stuff. I mean, very early on we learned that we can't do that with food, for example. Like, if we wanted food, then we need to grow it, right? We need to grow crops. Like, why did agriculture happen? Because otherwise we couldn't feed that many people. Because when you're just hunting and gathering from the environment, there's only so much stuff for you to gather from the environment. Ah, crap, that's not what I meant to do. This is what happens when I talk. I forget what I'm doing. So hunting and gathering is not sufficient to feed that many people. And so people invented agriculture. So instead of just going into the forest and finding fruits and berries and nuts and whatnot, instead of just going out into the wild and killing animals that are wandering around the wild, we made farms. We made farms. We grew crops. And so we, like, in a controlled manner, we can control our food sources. And that allowed us to produce more food. with the same resources. And so then we could feed more people with the same resources. And this is the sort of mentality that a lot of video games is it doesn't acknowledge. So if you play I play a lot of games like Diablo 3 for example. Like if you want something in Diablo 3, what do? You go out into a dungeon or a map or whatever it is. You kill a bunch of enemies. The enemies just drop things. You pick it up, you sell it, or you use it, or you disassemble it and then craft something else out of it. And then you quit the game, go back into the game, go back to the same map. All the enemies have respawned. You kill them again. And this is in this fictional video game version of reality, you can do this infinitely, and the world never runs out of things for you to kill. Whereas in the real world, if you try that sort of shenanigans, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that I don't know if I'm going to need that. I don't think I'll need that. What's going to happen is that you're going to kill everything in sight, and then there'll be nothing left, right? It's like we used to hunt whales for whale oil, and then after a while we ran out of whales to kill because there's not that many whales in the ocean. Right? We hunted them almost to extinction. Or like, rainforests. We go chop down the rainforest. We take the wood, we clear the land for farming. And then after a while, you just run out of forest because you just chopped it all down and then it's all gone. Like I've chopped down all the trees and it's gone. So you can't just you can't do it infinitely, right? You can't go out there into the wilderness and just infinitely gather resources and expect for there to be no limit to it, right? Because that's not how the real world works. And this is the sort of thing that video games don't really. Oh, that's it? Wait, this is it? Okay, that's it, guys. And I think there's a hole in the water outside as well, so the sand has kind of dropped down. And there's a hole in the water outside. Okay, well, here's a cave. And there's gonna be no more zombies down here. I don't know if I want to. I guess I'll just leave this hole in the ground and then cover the top of it. I guess we don't have to do it yet. Alright, let me just leave a hole down here. Maybe we can turn it into someone's. Oh, that's gravel. Crap. That's gravel. Maybe we can turn it into someone's basement or something. I can hear a skeleton. I don't know where the skeleton is though. Okay, the gravel is not. There's not that much gravel. Okay, I don't have enough. Need more shovels. Let me just grab this coal. There's a little bit of gravel down here. But again, like, you say, well, okay, well, we don't go around pillaging things, so instead of, foraging for food and hunting for food, we grow our own food, and that's a more responsible thing to do. Yes, let's be responsible, not go pillaging. But even then, as I said earlier, when you grow crops on an industrial scale, you deplete the soil, right? When crops grow, they don't appear out of nowhere, and they don't pull all their nutrients out of the air. Some of the nutrients they pull from the soil, and so the more crops you grow, the more your soil becomes depleted of the right nutrients. And you also eventually you lose soil if you just grow crops and harvest it. And so what people actually have to do is they sometimes have to let the land lie fallow. Fallow is I think is how you spell it. F-A, let me just go to Wikipedia. Crop rotation. Alright, we'll go to crop rotation. So the idea is that you don't just grow crops all the time. Every now and then you have to just let the soil do nothing for a while. And when it's doing nothing, it's not really doing nothing. What it's doing is that it's like the natural processes of the environment is replenishing the soil of its nutrients. Because when you grow the crops you want to grow, you're pulling specific nutrients out. But then when you grow other things, when you just let the ground like grow by itself, then other plants that need other nutrients and produce the nutrients you want will then grow on the ground and then replenish the soil. Like, natural ecosystems have a lot of different species of plants in the same place, and they all grow different. Like they all need different kinds of nutrients, and they all put different kinds of nutrients in the soil, and so they balance each other out to some extent. And when you let the soil be, when you just let the soil replenish itself, that's what's happening. It's like it's restoring the nutrients by having other plants grow there instead of your crops. What was I doing? All right, spruce, 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 spruce. And let me just take a bit of dirt and planks. Okay, so I'm gonna plank, gonna dirt, gonna shovel and axe. Is that what we're doing? That's what we're doing, right? Okay, that's what we're doing.